Joe Budden is spiraling fast after some familiar faces dropped a major hit piece on his podcast trying to tear down his whole brand.
Then we good. Now let's get back to the show.
But that's why you saying that?
Because when you say that sucker shit, I take that as disrespectful. And I take that as
really
to me.
Don't like
to me. So I'm trying to tell you.
But there's a lot of shit you say that we take disrespectful before the
and it's not you say that I take disrespectful. I'm not gonna talk about it on air because I'm not you.
I'm afraid.
So at the end of the day, I'm not you. This is what you do, and then I'm gonna leave you alone. No, Imani, I'm not trying. I'm not potting. I'm not potting.
I know.
What the fuck is you doing?
Can you grab him?
Are we talking or we potting?
Y'all are making
we can talk outside or we can pot. Then let's talk outside.
Mark and Flip.
No, don't. That.
Mark and Flip. It's not.
Every time you get mad, you talk like they and they not.
I didn't call you.
No, you called me a sucker. That's the same shit. Let's talk outside.
Stop, Mark.
I'm not trying to draw. Let's just talk outside.
We can't talk outside.
They can talk outside.
They can't talk outside.
No, y'all can talk outside. No, y'all.
I'm talking to outside.
Not outside. You're not in this hallway. Not in this hallway. You're not. Yeah, y'all take that shit up to a project block or somewhere.
This drama started just a few days ago when his co-hosts, Mark Lamont Hill and Queen Slip, got into a heated argument on air that nearly turned physical. Now, people close to Mark Lamont Hill, you know, the so-called bourgeoisie intellectuals, are jumping in. See, Mark Lamont Hill ain't one of those fake deep types pretending to be woke for clout, but there's a whole lane in hip-hop and black media where these so-called elites love to look down on independent voices. You got the pseudo-intellectuals, the real ones, and then the iHeartMedia puppets, the ones getting every BET gig, every major slot, and thinking they're untouchable. That's the crowd that believes they own Mark Lamont Hill. So now seeing him act out like this, they're in full panic mode, saying he's being ganged up on and pushed to act out of character. They can't handle the fact that one of their own is out here mixing it up on Joe Budden's turf, and instead of holding him accountable, they're blaming the Joe Budden podcast for everything. They straight up called the Joe Budden podcast anti-intellectual, a cesspool even. The hit piece was titled Joe Budden's Podcast and the Dumbing Down of America, and they really went all in. From the jump, they compared the show's wild moments to people imitating their oppressor. Now, if you watch just that 30-second clip, you might kind of see where they're coming from. But come on, it's way deeper than that. This whole Mark Lamont Hill and Queen Flip situation wasn't one-sided at all. Queen Flip didn't just pick on Mark, and Mark definitely ain't soft.
And sometimes we can adopt the oppressor's behavior, which brings me to a clip that went viral this week, and that is, of course, of our friend and brother, Mark Lamont Hill. This happened on the Joe Budden broadcast this week. To me, it was clear that his co-host felt small. And, you know, even him saying you use tricky words and Mark responding with, I use words that are tricky to you. And anytime somebody, I think, cannot take to be questioned or responds with a full temper tantrum, it is always about that other person, not about, like, it wasn't Mark. He didn't do anything. And if someone is so small that you can't articulate your point without throwing a temper tantrum or insulting another person, I'm happy that Mark showed both sides, that yes, I'm an intellectual, but don't get up in the studio, you know? And I think it's important for people to see that, yes, you can still be an intellectual and demand your respect. That doesn't make you soft.
They've been going back and forth, and to me, it just looked like one big misunderstanding. Queen Flip wasn't calling Mark a sucker, but Mark took it that way and just snapped. If we're being real, by their own logic, wouldn't Mark be the one acting a fool? Honestly, it felt like Queen Flip was just frustrated, throwing little jabs about how Mark uses tricky words, which probably made her feel talked down to. That kind of tension happens in debates all the time. At first, it was messy, but still controlled, until Angela Rye jumped in and took it to another level. She told Joe Budden and his whole crew they're not even invited up there, basically calling them non-intellectuals. That's when things really started to get spicy. I get what they're trying to say, and sure, at times, it might look that way. But if you actually watch the Joe Budden podcast regularly, you know that crew has been nothing but solid toward Mark Lamont Hill.
I don't think that Mark should be left holding the bag in this exchange. I take great issue with that podcast and its treatment of Mark. And I was wondering when he was gonna snap. You know, there's another clip that I don't know if you all saw, where Mark announces very vulnerably that he's lost almost all of his colleagues that were reporting in Gaza. And by lost, I mean they are killed. They died in their reporting and trying to be courageous for their people.
And then around the world, we're seeing violence everywhere, including Gaza, where I work for Al Jazeera. My colleagues, every colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. Every single colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. So we got a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff to pay attention to.
That's pretty good. All right, Young Thug dissed, I get scared every time he do that shit.
He do it so fast. So you gotta,
everybody know in Gaza is like,
oh my colleague.
God damn, he doing it again. That nigga Mark, boy. Why you don't never support him when he start talking that shit? You support him very well, Pizza Hut.
He has my full support, but I also know that once he says something like that, or we discuss something like that, then we're just like, okay, what's the fucking pivot? What's the pivot after we talk about every journalist on the Gaza Strip being murdered? Like, what's the pivot?
So Young Thug
there we go.
appeared on Little Baby's project.
Quite the project.
And sharing vulnerably, he's lost all his people. And Joe Budden's transition, not this other guy, I don't know everybody's name, but not this other guy. Joe Budden's transition is like, and Young Thug. Like, just no mention of like, are you okay? Yeah. How do you feel? Who was lost this week? How did they die? Just like nothing. So 2 tips point around curiosity. If you can't find curiosity, find sympathy. If you can't find sympathy, find empathy. If you can't find empathy, find compassion. Because if you don't, the person who is in a constant state of grief, at some point that grief turns to rage because there's not a safe container for it. So we say on this show, welcome home, and we mean that. Of course, Mark is welcome anytime. I don't know about the rest of them. So I just want Mark to know I'm praying for you, brother. You know that. And I want better for him. I think that he deserves to hold space with people who are at least more compassionate and more eager to learn from his perspective.
They've given him the space to speak, to educate, to drop knowledge. They've welcomed him in with open arms. Nobody's bullying Mark on that show, not even close. That whole "they're picking on him" idea, that's something folks made up from one short clip that doesn't tell the full story. Let's keep it real. Mark Lamont Hill was a free agent for a while. CNN wasn't calling, MSNBC wasn't hiring. It was Joe Budden who gave him a real platform and probably a 6-figure bag to speak his mind every week. So how you gonna turn around and bash the same man who put him on? If y'all really believe Mark is that valuable, then why didn't you give him a spot? You had every chance, but you didn't. That tells me Joe and his team actually value Mark. They're paying him, respecting him, and giving him airtime. That's not hate, that's love and opportunity. But then Tiffany Cross jumps in and takes it too far. She basically said she has zero interest in hearing opinions from people like Queen Flip, totally trying to discredit him and act like his voice don't matter. That right there showed exactly how disconnected some of these so-called intellectuals really are. Joe Budden came back swinging and hard. In his response, he didn't hold back at all. He straight up called them charmites. Now, if you don't know that term, it's some old JBP lingo. Back in the day, when Joe and Charlamagne Tha God were beefing heavy, Joe used to call Charlamagne's crew the charmites, basically his little orbiters.
I'm not saying it's something wrong with engaging the flips of the world. I would never say, Andrew, Bakari, Angela, y'all should not engage the flips. I'm saying I, Tiffany, have no desire to engage the flips of the world. I don't choose to be in a conversation, but that's just not my ministry. I wouldn't be good at it. And I just have no desire. And yes, I do not respect everybody's opinion on everything. And yes, we respect each other's opinion here on most things, but there are some things. I mean, Bakari, if you came to me and was like, your period coming, you got a cramp, this is what you need to do. I'm probably like, what are you basing that on, Bakari? Like, where did you get that from? Like, that's not necessarily your area of expertise. I might not.
I got that off Instagram. The lady on Instagram said if you eat steak when your period starts. I'm just telling you what the lady on Instagram told me.
Listen, depending on how bad the cramps are, I might listen to his ass. So I'm sorry, that's where we differ.
You're desperate. But I hear that so often that people like, oh, well, I got a hunch. Or I got it off Instagram, or I saw it on TikTok, or I know for a fact. Well, how do you know for a fact? And then more often people told me, because so-and-so told me, then you don't know for a fact. If you didn't talk to the source, then you don't know something for a fact. So I don't respect everyone's opinion.
Or
I
how
have
you
no
might feel about
desire to
you
engage.
The folks who pop up on the Breakfast Club are brilliant idiots here and there, always moving with Charlamagne's shadow. Angela Rye? Yeah, Joe put her right in that category. So when Joe heard Angela Rye criticizing him, he took it as straight bias, like she's only dissing him because he doesn't rock with Charlamagne. From Joe's view, her opinion ain't genuine, it's personal. That's why he started sunning her a bit, saying he doesn't care if she invites him or not, because he'd never share the same room as her anyway. He feels too established, too accomplished for that. And if I'm Mark Lamont Hill sitting in the middle of all this chaos, I'm feeling torn. On one hand, I see friends standing up for me, but then I hear those same people saying, you shouldn't even be over there, they're not your kind. And I'd be like, hold up, those are the same people who gave me a job and a check, the same people who actually value my voice. So why would I turn my back on that?
My acceptance of her non-invitation becomes relevant, right? Like Angela Rye, I can assure you, like I've got over 25 years in this business. I can assure you if you and I are in the same place, it's a mistake on my part. Like I'm all for people saying who's invited and uninvited places, so I ain't mad at it. But we would never be in the same space. You quote unquote intellectuals seem to be pulling a lot from places that, again, like it said, you admittedly know very little about. It just comes off a way.
Yeah,
it comes off a way.
It's like if you put,
especially when you pretending to especially when you pretending to do all of this super black kumbaya. I got a problem with that too. I got a problem with the people that masquerade as kumbaya, super black, all for the people, and I'll be the first one to tell you how we're different. I come on here every week and say we're less different than we are alike. We just got different ideologies. But I'm not going to keep listening to people who in 25 years, I've never said the name Angela Rye. I don't give a fuck about nothing y'all talking about over there. I'm saying that respectfully. I don't come on here and say a word about any of that shit. I expect reciprocity. You could have titled that clip totally different.
That's true.
Don't claim to be super pro-black and then take the #1 black urban podcast and put that type of stink on it because you think you got a friend over here. That don't give you a license.
I don't think it's that. I don't think if Mark was here or not. I think
if Mark was here, they would never have those conversations.
No,
they having those conversations because their friend is up here.
No, they having those conversations because Mark is deemed an academic and an intellectual, which you
well,
are.
He is, not deemed,
No,
he is.
I said what you are. So now it's, yo, why is he even there? Like Angela Yee said, yo, Mark, just come home.
Angela Rye.
Pardon me, Angela Rye said, Mark, just come home.
That's the other beef.
But then you go on to say how diverse Mark is. So I think that that's an insult because you don't put Mark in a box. Mark is home. Mark is a black man sitting in a room with black men that grew up in similar circumstances, albeit we wasn't all in the court. You can't say he's not home.
We all had our own walks of life.
Yeah, dog. Like I just disagree with that shit.
And thank God there was a black-owned, independent media company there to pick up our good brother when he was misunderstood by other outlets.
Talk about it.
Why is that part not being said by pro-black native land people? I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
Mark was a free agent. Y'all had a chance to bring him home.
And didn't.
You didn't.
That's a good point.
So don't sit up on your platforms all pretentious as one of the Charlamites. That's how I know you. I know you as one of the Charlamites and get to saying what Mark should and shouldn't be doing. Please. If you didn't discuss this podcast before, if by your own admittance you know very little about it, the woman Tiffany said at least 5 times that she don't give a fuck about these other opinions. All I'm asking is that you act like it.
Also, if you're...
Now here's where it gets real messy, because Joe Budden flips the whole conversation back on the so-called intellectuals, saying they only pretend to care about black progress when it benefits their image. He points out how they sit on TV panels talking equality but don't lift a finger to help independent creators who aren't already in their circle. Joe's like, how you calling my platform toxic when I'm literally paying black voices to speak freely? That hit a nerve. Angela Rye fires back online, saying Joe's ego won't let him handle criticism and that he's dragging black media down by mixing street talk with intellectual spaces. But fans weren't buying that. They said she's just mad she can't control the narrative anymore. Meanwhile, Queen Flip stays quiet, probably realizing this went way beyond their original argument. By this point, the energy around the Joe Budden podcast is wild. Some fans defending him like he's standing up for the culture, others saying he's out of line. But one thing's clear, Joe's not backing down. He's calling out every fake ally, every panel professional, and anyone who tries to gatekeep who gets to speak on black culture. It's turning into more than a debate. It's a war of authenticity, and Joe's swinging for respect, like his whole legacy's on the line. After all that chaos, Joe Budden doubled down once again. He said he's tired of people who use intellectual status as a shield to look down on others. Joe made it clear he built his own platform, no corporate backing, no fake smiles, just raw conversation and real emotion. He said, I don't need their approval. I built my own lane. That shook the internet. Mark Lamont Hill, for his part, tried to keep the peace, saying he still respects Joe, even if he doesn't agree with everything. But fans noticed he looked conflicted. Some are saying he's caught between loyalty and public image, and honestly, that's a tough spot to be in. Meanwhile, Angela Rye and Tiffany Cross haven't let up, still calling Joe's show toxic and non-intellectual. But Joe's audience, they're growing louder, standing behind him stronger than ever. At this point, the Joe Budden podcast isn't just a show, it's a movement. Love him or hate him, Joe's forcing the whole media world to talk. This beef might have started as a small argument, but now it's exposing the deep divide between polished media and independent voices, and that's something the industry can't ignore anymore. Hold up, this right here is the biggest black podcast on the planet, and you're telling me Mark Lamont Hill's own friends don't want him there? That's wild. Like, how does that even make sense? Joe Budden's show gave him a spotlight when nobody else did. When Mark got dropped from his old gig, he was pulling maybe a few hundred views on YouTube, struggling to find his lane. The man's brilliant, no doubt, but he wasn't built for the grind of content creation. He just wanted to teach, speak truth, and share knowledge, not stress about algorithms or production tricks. So Joe Budden steps in and throws him a lifeline, gives him a platform, a bag, and a whole new audience. And now these intellectual friends are suddenly saying he shouldn't be there? Like what? Where exactly should he go then? Back to CNN, the Native Land podcast? Be for real. Joe didn't use him, he uplifted him. It's crazy seeing people trying to pull him away from the only team that believed in him when nobody else did. So now I gotta ask, do y'all think Mark Lamont Hill should stay loyal to Joe Budden's platform or walk away to please his critics? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Dripzine, hit that like button, and share this video. We drop the realest stories every week.